The question I get asked most often is, how do you start? Do you start with a melody? Do you start with chord progressions, a rhythm? Uh, the shortest answer I can think of is to say, I start with whatever helps me focus on the drama, the dramatic intent of a scene, if I'm doing a score. More often than not, that is going to me for me to be chord based, because it is inside the structure of a chord that a moment will have inherent, let's just say, sadness or happiness, right? Minor or major qualities to them, or something that is unsure, like a suspended quality. So a lot of times I'll start with chords. But the other thing that I do whenever I'm writing is always give the audience a handle. I think this is really, really important. Most of the times, or much of the time, that may be melodically based, but it can also be motif based. But I like to give the audience something that makes them know that the music is comfortable for them, that it engages them, that they understand where it's coming from. It can be simple. It can be just playing from minor to major. Do that again. In just that statement, the audience feels like, okay, I get it. Like I'm with you. Um, that sort of thing is crucially important to focusing a listener, no matter what you're going to do with them dramatically. A lot of times I'll hear, like people will start, especially when they are starting out writing, they'll write chords that don't necessarily move in any one direction or give the listener anything to lock onto. You'll hear stuff like this. Where, like they're they just sort of move and they do things. It's like, okay, well, I get that. That's nice. Okay, but see, the thing of it is, you don't necessarily know what this means. What is it saying? Where's it going? Nowhere really, is the answer. And so an audience they can't lock on to anything. Sometimes you'll hear, I mean, that's sort of this Elfman kind of thing, and it sort of becomes his his thing. Like he'll move like that, but he'll always move in similar increments to sort of give you a handle that that's what I'm doing. Sort of the way he uses whole tone scales. So I'm always looking for devices that mimic each other, that have something in common. It can be anything. If it's like an interval of a certain type. Even that, even though it's not a precise duplication of the interval, it says something to the audience that they can lock onto. So I put those two ideas together. Let me find something that chordally speaks to what the scene is about and has an anchor in it. That's usually where I start. And in terms of what kind of chords to use, that's a very complicated question, I think, to answer in any reasonable amount of time. But you know what? On some level, you can keep it very simple. When they're sad, you're in minors. When they're happy, you're in majors. For this Superman piece, I was mostly in suspended land. Because this conversation that they're having about is not about resolving anything. It doesn't resolve, like the chords literally don't resolve. And when they do, sometimes it may only be for a second. And then they suspend again. The idea being that they aren't clear of what's going to happen for them, and the music isn't clear. So I like to, wherever possible, mirror the actual emotional and dramatic beats in a scene quite literally with the music. That's something I do frequently. So when it comes to, let's say you have some chords in mind. Another thing that I do a lot is whenever I have melodic or thematic motifs, I like to make melodic statements which outline the chords that they belong to without needing the chords. For example, if I was just going to, play something, without anything else, you already get a fairly decent sense of what the chords are in there, because I'm literally outlining them. There it is. As soon as I hit that change, you can hear all of that. That to me is usually the indication of, at least that's my favorite way of writing melodies. Melodies that then allow the audience to feel that much more connected to the underlying chord structure. There's a billion great examples of, take one of my favorite themes, partially one of my favorite things because it's so almost goofy. The Raiders theme. Well, there it is right there. The 3, the 5, and the tonic. You can just hear that in your head without having to hear the chord, such that when you do, to Western ears anyway, that is implied. There we are again, tonic, the 3rd and the 7th. Now you hear. Well, if you've grown up in a Western culture and you go, in your mind, you are already going, you can't, it's there. So he does it. Right? So he is self-sustaining the melody chordally, doesn't actually need that, and you're with him. You could already anticipate what he does. So then he goes to the next part of the melody. Now you and I have heard this melody a million times. We can hear. But the first time you hear the melody, without hearing that, you might think it is. So when he hits you with this, ooh, I didn't expect that. All this stuff, I was with you. I expected it. I felt like I knew everything. And I was like, oh, I get this whole melody. And then you hit me with this. It's cool now. But see, there's the thing about it. Some familiar, some new. And that to me is the essence of good communication. Some familiar, some new. Create an anchor, a common point of reference for your audience so that they know that you know how to talk to them, that you're one of them, that you speak the same language, they can relate to you. But you know what? Then you say some things that really inspire them, or you say some things that really makes them think. That to me is the nature of it. The nature of stuff that's most effective. So I look for those two qualities both in the chords that I write and or in the melodies or motifs that I write. Motifs that are familiar but keep you guessing, that help to define the chords that they're part of without absolutely explicitly having to hear the chords. And or if there's just chords moving, the chords move in a way that give you an anchor, something so that you know we speak the same language. A very complicated topic, but I think those are the essence points for me. And it doesn't matter what I'm writing; those things are always part of my writing. Keeping it as much part of that language metaphor that I like to use when talking about music as possible. Okay, so with those principles in mind, let's talk about the chords that I might choose for this. Let's say this Superman piece. And as I said, in my mind, this was a scene about conversations. So we were going to sort of live in that land where as the conversation had, pitfalls in it, and it had moments of hope, that the music will play around with minor tonalities and suspended tonalities and duck into some major tonalities. It's going to be a very complicated, involved, heady discussion that they're having. They're star-crossed lovers. Can we be together? I wish we could, but we can't. But I love you. I know, but But so it's very complicated. Well, that also says something else to me, and this is where we start to delve into the writing about the instrumentation and the orchestration. To me, the choice of instruments that you use to express an emotion, that is the orchestration, is inexorably linked to the composition, that you cannot separate what you do chords-wise or melodically from the instruments that you say them with. A statement made down here, is different than a statement made down there on a different instrument. It's just the strings have a different quality to them. So lots of times I will plant a seed where I'll say to myself, okay, what's the scene about? Well, this is a complex scene where they're discussing about being star-crossed lovers. That's a complicated scene, complex dramatically. That says to me strings, because strings are complex in that they have such a wide frequency range. It's such a wide dynamic range, and you can do such dissonant little tonalities with them, or the most just open soft things. They are capable of a great range. So in a scene where there's a great range of emotions, that's usually the place I'll start. And that already starts to inform, for me, something about the orchestration. Well, that means we're going to start and we're going to lean on strings. So now the other instruments in the orchestra, I'm already thinking about them as melodic complements or colors, versus if say it's a scene about, the fallen soldier. Okay, well, if it's a fallen soldier, you just pull up your solo trumpet and... that's where you are. You're in that land now, and now that says something about the orchestration. In fact, solo trumpet, you don't necessarily. I mean, it's very, very focused. It also says something about the key that you may be writing in, and about the ranges of the instruments that are going to be around them. For example, as I just grabbed for that trumpet sound, I'm in a range for that trumpet. I'm not way up here screaming. And I'm not right down, here. I'm right in that range in the middle where a trumpet player can play with that sonorous, noble quality to it. But that gives me a key range, probably somewhere in the B flats to D kind of thing. And now if I'm thinking about the instruments that are going to be around it, I'm thinking, well, which instruments are complementary to a brass instrument and have that broad ennobling quality in that sort of range or in the complementary ranges. And so the choice of the trumpet in this case, as an example, and the range I'm playing it in immediately affect which instruments I'm going to be used to complementing them, because they're going to need to be in certain ranges, and certain instruments have certain qualities in certain ranges. So I keep in mind all these sorts of things, all in my head right at once at the outset, because those first steps are very, very important. Because if you plant those anchors, plant those seeds right at the beginning, it'll go much faster and much more fluidly. If you don't have the right sort of tonality in your chords, or the right sort of instrument and the right sort of range to begin, you're going to fight yourself from the beginning, and it's not going to come. It's not going to flow. It's going to fight itself and the scene, and then you're not going to be sure what to do. The best way to be able to know, solo trumpet and those notes in this range, the only way I can say that is listen to a billion pieces, and build an internal library of the sound of the fallen soldier. So, and the era of the fallen soldier. I mean, I did sort of something that sort of open fifths thing. But if you were going back further in time, you might have gone right to, just right, because you can say fallen soldier with major triads. It's sort of interesting. So again, these are the things that I always keep in my mind in the beginning. What are my instruments? What are my harmonies? What are my anchors? What musically is going to mirror the scene, etc. Okay.